Thank you all very much. My name is Fred Hof. I am from the State Department, as we say in Washington. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help. It is indeed a great honor for me to be invited by the Syrian American Council to address the town hall. I do have some formal remarks to deliver on behalf of myself and on behalf of my government. And lest I forget, my boss, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, sends her very best wishes to each and every one of you. It's also a great pleasure, but I must add a little bit intimidating to follow Najib Ghambian, somebody who I've been honored to know for several years, and it's been too long. It's good to see you, Najib. As I say, I do have some formal remarks, but before I get into that, I'd like to mention just one aspect of my biography, my so-called biography, that doesn't come up often in formal occasions like this. I'd like to mention it in terms of a thank you to two people who have made it possible for me to be here in front of you today. Their names, and they've long since passed on, are Isa and Rose Lutfi. These were two people who 47 years ago opened their home in Mizrah in Damascus to a frightened young 16-year-old kid from New York making his first trip overseas, if you don't count the Staten Island ferry, as an American Field Service exchange student in Damascus. If it weren't for my Syrian mother and father, if it were not for their generosity, I would not be here today. So, deep in my heart, I thank them for making this possible. Now, in my remarks today, I'd like to try to peer into the future just a bit and discuss the Syrian-American bilateral relationship in the post-Assad period. As a State Department person, although I'm not a career State Department person, I was just invited back in 2.5 years ago by Senator George Mitchell. This is, I suppose, a subject that's appropriate for me to discuss. Obviously, I would not have chosen this subject without believing that there will indeed be a post-Assad Syria and sooner. What I have to say about the future of this bilateral relationship is also guided by some assumptions that I feel pretty comfortable making. First, the post-Assad Syria will reflect, either immediately or over time, government operating on the basis of the consent of the government. Second, this government will make up its own mind about how it relates to the United States of America. Third, it will do so on the basis of equality, independence, and national interest. Now, on August 18th of this year, President Obama called on President Bashar al-Assad to step aside. On that date, a new chapter of Syrian-American relations began. In the company of other democracies around the world, the United States confirmed its solidarity with the people of Syria in their struggle for self-determination. self-determination in this context raises eyebrows. Normally, it is a phrase associated with independence from colonial rule. And in this narrow sense, Syria achieved self-determination in 1946. Yet after a brief flirtation with democracy, Syria fell under the rule of a small clique whose actions have made them every bit as hostile to real self-determination as rulers from afar. Whatever legitimacy the Syrian people may once have accorded this clique is now all but gone. The demand of Syrians for government based on the voluntary consent of the governed is indistinguishable from a struggle for self-determination. For Syrians, the absence of basic human rights is not made any more acceptable by the fact that their jailer-in-chief happens to be Syrian. Therefore, when democracies declare their solidarity with the people of Syria, they do so very much in the context of self-determination. They do so with the conviction that all peoples are naturally endowed with the right to self-rule. They, meaning the democracies of the world, do so with the understanding that a government in Syria based on consent of the governed will not be a government that will always agree with them on all issues. They do so with the acknowledgement of Syria's right and responsibility to pursue an independent foreign policy based on a calculation of national interests that is entirely 100% Syrian. They do so with the expectation that a democratic Syria will exert a powerful impact on regional affairs and a strong influence on the prospects for comprehensive Middle East peace. Self-determination for Syrians, in short, will be nothing less than a confirmation of Syria's independence, both at home and abroad. The United States and its democratic partners have stated clearly that questions of who will govern Syria and how Syrians will be governed can be answered only by the Syrian people. They alone hold the key to legitimacy, which means the right of a government to govern. We have reached the point in the 21st century where the right to govern anywhere derives from one source, the consent of the governed. It is up to citizens, no matter where they reside, to determine how exactly this right will be exercised. Ultimately, the people of Syria will create a formula for establishing, exercising, and testing legitimacy, one that is totally Syrian in design and function. While there may be practices worth copying from the rich mosaic of democratic systems around the world, Syrians are entitled to a system tailored specifically to their needs, their traditions, and their desires. In short, we acknowledge freely and without reservation that the people of Syria are masters of their own house. Does this mean that we and our democratic partners are indifferent to the answers they'll arrive at? No, we care deeply. Without rule of law, codifying the consent of the governed by extending equal rights and full protection to all citizens, irrespective of sect, ethnicity, and gender, there can be no real democracy. majority rule without minority rights, and equal protection for all on the basis of citizenship would only substitute one form of tyranny for another. Civil society, with government and governed alike, subject to the rule of law, provides the framework in which consent of the governed produces real legitimacy and sustained stability. This is the outcome for Syria that we and our democratic partners would be honored to support. It is true that the precise formula through which Syrian self-determination is achieved and exercised is entirely up to the Syrian people. Yet we and the balance of the international community cannot and will not support the substitution of one form of tyranny for another. We cannot and will not support a system of sectarian political privilege. We cannot and will not support policies or practices featuring discrimination of any kind against any Syrian citizen on the basis of sect, ethnicity, and gender. By the same token, we and our democratic partners will pay close attention to the foreign policy choices the Syrian people will make when they have a government and a system based on their voluntary consent. While we cannot dictate those choices and have no interest in doing so, we can certainly make some reasonably intelligent assumptions about the general course we think and we hope a free Syria will chart. First, we certainly hope that a legitimate Syrian government will seek to be part of a just and comprehensive Middle East peace. We expect that a free Syria will pursue its own national objectives in the context of a comprehensive Arab-Israeli peace and will likely be guided by the Arab Peace Initiative, which aims for full peace and full normalization. The United States will be fully prepared to facilitate the Syrian track of comprehensive peace by, among other things, consulting closely with the Syrian government operating on the basis of the consent of the governed and dedicated to achieving its goals by peaceful means. Second, we assume that a legitimate Syrian government will establish with Iran a relationship that upholds and respects Syrian independence. Over the past decade, the current regime has, for reasons having nothing to do with Syria's legitimate national security objectives, become a junior partner to Iran and an accomplice in the hegemonic regional designs of Tehran's regime. This junior partnership has even featured a relationship of equality and familiarity between the president of the Syrian Arab Republic and a Lebanese militia leader operating in the service of Iran. This is a relationship that undermines Syria's independence and literally places its national security in the hands of others. Third, we have every reason to believe that legitimate governance in Syria will produce relationships with neighboring states featuring warmth, equality, and mutual respect. Lebanon and Syria will always have a special relationship based on geography, kinship, language, and culture. A Syria governed decently will have no motive or desire to make Lebanon the object of criminal conspiracies. A Syria with legitimacy, enshrined by the consent of the governed, can rebuild and make permanent an economic and political relationship with Turkey, now subject to the whims of a failing and falling dictatorship. A democratic Syria can contribute to and benefit from Iraq's political and economic resurrection, instead of facilitating the murderous activities of al-Qaeda in Iraq. A Syria in which Syrian interests come first can only have a relationship of trust, confidence, and warmth with the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan and the future state of Palestine. And naturally, we all look forward to the day when Syria and Israel will be at peace, a peace regarded by both sides as honorable, just, dignified, and permanent. Fourth and finally, we hope that a Syria reaping the rewards of real self-determination will also have a relationship of trust and confidence with the United States. Syrians are a fiercely proud, nationalistic, and independent people, no matter how they are governed or by whom. Just as the Syrian people today resent the regime's subordination to Iran, so will Syrians during the era of self-determination demand an independent course that upholds their dignity and their sense of justice. Even now, Syria and the United States enjoy a special relationship in one key respect. For a century and a half, immigrants from Syria have graced our republic with their industry, their enterprise, their patriotism, and their achievement. The speed and skill with which Syrian immigrants have adapted to the rule of law speaks volumes about how Syrians will thrive when government, by consent of the governed, comes to Syria itself. When that happy day arrives, the people of Syria will find Americans ready for the kind of relationship between our two governments, which has always existed at the people-to-people level. And the United States and its partners will be proud to offer a new Syrian government and its people whatever assistance they require to recover from decades of political and economic stagnation under corrupt and incompetent rule. The struggle of the Syrian people to rule themselves, to chart their own course, and to have a government that is responsible and accountable is not, in short, all about America or its allies. Indeed, it's not about us at all. The most recent chapter of this long struggle for self-determination has been written by those brave Syrians who face bullets, arrest, and torture on a daily basis to call peacefully for an end to violence, intimidation, and arrests, and for a transition to a political system that respects their rights and their dignity. This chapter is also being written by Syrians abroad, including many American citizens and residents, as well as friends of the Syrian people everywhere who are toiling tirelessly in solidarity with activists inside Syria. In this respect, the work of the Syrian American Council is critical. Your willingness to focus selflessly on the needs of those who struggle for freedom inside Syria is an inspiration to us all. When a free Syria emerges, this council will be on the honor roll of those who helped to bring it about. people of Syria will lead to a Syrian-American relationship where trade and investment replace sanctions and designations, where mutual respect and confidence replace contempt and suspicion, and where the warmth felt by Syrians and Americans at the personal level finds itself reflected in the relationship of two sovereign, equal governments. Yet we do not assume that the new Syria will agree with us at all times and on all issues. On the contrary, we assume that Syrians will want a government that serves them and is answerable to them to do what is best for Syria. In view of the policies and practices of the current regime, this is an outcome the United States will welcome, even if the United States and a free Syria disagree from time to time on policies and priorities. So permit me to close with a few words from President Obama's statement of August 18, 2011. Quote, "It is up to the Syrian people to choose their own leaders, and we have heard their strong desire that there not be foreign intervention in their movement. What the United States will support is an effort to bring about a Syria that is democratic, just, and inclusive for all Syrians. We will support this outcome by pressuring President Assad to get out of the way of this transition and standing up for the universal rights of the Syrian people, along with others in the international community," unquote. This is our policy. This is where we stand. As an American whose life has been enriched by decades-long friendships with Syrians, I can imagine no other position that our government could take, given the manner in which the regime in Damascus has chosen to respond to legitimate, peaceful protests. We look forward to the day when there will be, for all Syrians, all 23 million of them, a country other than America, Australia, Canada, or France, where real citizenship, real rule of law, real opportunity, and real freedom will be open to them. The country we have in mind is Syria. God willing, the journey to true self-determination will be concluded quickly and with a minimum of additional suffering and heartbreak. The cost has already been unconscionably high. Those responsible for it shall not escape accountability for what they have done. And those who have paid the price will be in the thoughts and prayers of freedom-loving people everywhere until the end of time.